Hello, Montana. This is Front Row Center. My name is Lauren Korn. I'm joined in the MTPR studios today by Marc, the founder and executive director of Tell Us Something, which is billed as a live storytelling event. Welcome to the studios, Marc.
Thanks for having me, Lauren.
And so you are not only the founder and organizer at this point, but you also coach the participants who are telling these stories. What does that process look like? And how does someone get from the point at which they want to tell a story publicly to on the stage? What does that process look like for them?
Well, first they generally pitch a story to the pitch line, 406-203-4683.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and from there, we have a selection committee, and the selection committee goes and listens to all of the pitches. And as soon as the pitch comes in, I call and say, "Hey, Lauren, I got your pitch. Thanks for pitching. The pitch deadline is whatever it is." And after that, I'll call you back and let you know if you've been selected.
So the turnaround is pretty quick then?
As far as knowing if you've been heard?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like everyone needs, it's like hanging out in space wondering what's going to happen is never fun.
Fair enough.
So after that, once all of the selections have been made, I call everyone back. Hey, you didn't make the cut this time. Maybe there will be opportunity for you in the future. Or, hey, you made it. And the next step is we need to schedule a one-on-one workshop, which involves usually you just tell your story until you're done, and I'll tell you how long it was, and then we'll deconstruct it and say, this was great, this is problematic, I noticed your story was only 6 minutes long, here's how we can fill out that 10-minute time frame.
So each participant gets 10 minutes?
10 minutes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And sometimes that's the way it goes, that's the ideal.
Yeah.
Sometimes the person is like, my pitch is really all I have, and I don't really know how to form this story, and I'm not sure what I want to do and why I'm actually doing it, but I felt compelled. And so what should I do? And so then I just ask a bunch of questions. Mainly, what do you want the listeners to come away with? Why do you want to tell the story? And that starts getting them thinking about what's really important in the story, because if I went on vacation to Europe for 2 months, I can't fit that into a story, one 10-minute story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have to pick a moment. What is the moment? So after that first one-on-one, then we have a group workshop.
All together? So
everyone
all
together.
8 participants?
8 participants generally. This time we have 7.
Okay.
And usually that's at my house with a potluck dinner, and we all sort of get together, and I give them sort of a rundown of what the night's going to look like, and then everyone has a chance to tell their story and get feedback from all of the other storytellers.
Mm-hmm.
And often they're strangers in a room, and when they leave that room 3 or 4 hours later, they're family. You know, they're friends, and they love each other and have built each other up and shared their hearts. And
so it's hardly a one-off thing. It's not like they're spending 1 hour, one night together. They become very close.
Yeah, and
Great.
That's the goal. That's the sort of ideal. But this time we had to do it on Zoom because it was just easier and safer.
Okay. And you guys are preparing for an upcoming event on March 30th?
March 30th is the show, yes.
Okay.
And the theme is Stone Soup.
How did Stone Soup come to be, and what do you mean by Stone Soup?
Yeah, exactly. Because of COVID and because we decided to have a show sort of what feels like last minute in January, I just picked a theme that I thought would land for folks.
Mm-hmm.
And enough people have come up to me and said, "What are you talking about, Stone Soup?" I was surprised. And you're in the creative world, you know what this story is.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who don't know, it's very common in many different cultures to have a version of this story. And it goes along the lines of 3 weary travelers roll through town, usually a village, and they're hungry, and they're tired, and they need to eat, and they ask for food. They knock on the door. Can you feed us? Do you have anything to eat? We're really hungry. We don't have anything. We need a place to stay. And the villagers shut their doors and windows and sort of turn the strangers out. And the strangers scratch their head and look at each other and say, I have an idea, and go to what looks like the main, leader of the village and say, it's great that you don't have any food, but we're pretty resilient, and all we really need is a big, huge kettle. You have a kettle, and they scrounge up a kettle and build a fire in the middle of the square and put 3 big rocks into the kettle and stir the water and wait for the water to boil, and then they taste it and say, this is pretty good. Yeah, this is good. You know what would make it better? Carrots. Oh, says one of the villagers, I have carrots. And along the way, the soup is made. Everyone contributes. And so I thought, maybe all we need to do is say, bring whatever story you have, and that's enough. We don't need any cohesive theme. We'll just pretend it's cohesive and just bring everything, and it'll be just nice goulash, of stories.
The cohesion can be the community.
Right.
Sure.
Or the stories could be about creatively solving a problem, or the stories could be about when you were tricked into helping, or the community coming together stories.
Sure, yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
So that was my intention, and no one really figured that out. Right?
Oh no.
I just made the assumption that everyone knows this story, and usually we get around 25 to 30 pitches for what used to be 8 storytelling slots. And this time I think we got 4.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Okay.
And of those 4, 1 was solid. And so I did a lot of heavy recruiting. And I thought, I keep a list of everyone that's ever pitched, and I still have those pitches, and I keep another list of alternates. And so I went back and looked at that list, and I thought, these are the people I'm going to invite. And I called all of them, and I emailed them and said, hey, you want to do this thing? And I think I probably made 40 calls, or contacted them in some variety of ways.
Okay.
And some people I had never pitched, and I just know they have a great story, and I was like, you need to do this. You need to do this. This is the time for you. And it felt a lot like the early days of, hey, I'm doing this thing. I know it's weird, but do you want to do it? And that was what it used to look like.
Sort of starting over.
Yeah, it's kind of what it feels like. And so we have a great lineup of 7 storytellers, and there's some surprises involved as well. 2020 was Tell Us Something's 10-year anniversary.
Wow.
Yeah, and so we had a lot of cool things lined up that obviously couldn't happen, so we're going to try and do some of that on March 30th at the Wilma next week.
What time can people expect to be at the Wilma to listen to these unexpected stories?
Will call opens at 5:30.
Okay.
Doors open at 6. It is general admission seating. We are only running at 75% capacity, so that people can spread out if they want to. That room holds 825 people, so 75% is about 620. So in a room that size, that's a lot of space to spread out. And like I said, general admission, people can sit wherever they want. So doors open at 6, storytelling begins at 7.
And where can folks go to purchase tickets for this event?
People can purchase tickets at the event at logjampresents.com. If they choose to purchase them on the phone number for purchasing tickets is there. They can also go to the Top Hat Lounge box office and purchase tickets at the Top Hat.
And if they want to find out more information about Tell Us Something, perhaps listen to old podcasts, past events, they can go to the website?
Yep, tellussomething.org. They can subscribe to the podcast wherever they get their podcasts. The podcast is usually based around the storytelling event. And because we weren't really able to do that in the beginning of 2020, outside of one streaming event then, I started interviewing past storytellers about their story, about what they've been up to, about, anything they really wanted to talk about. And so sort of meet the storytellers behind the stories. And so that's what the podcast looks like right now. So I play the story, and then you get to hang out with the storyteller.
That's amazing.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the format when I initially started it. When I initially started it was meet the storyteller, then listen to their story.
Yeah.
Because usually I know the storyteller in some fashion, and so that's how I come to their story. So why not have the listeners come to it in the same way? Well, I interviewed Jeremy N. Smith, who was the last storyteller at the very first Tell Us Something event. I was interviewing Jeremy N. Smith, and he hadn't yet listened to the new iteration of the Tell Us Something podcast, and he assumed that it was play the story, then hear the interview. And I've never considered doing it that way, and now I'm doing it that way because it makes more sense.
Yeah.
And so...
And you're going to continue?
I don't know if I will, if I need to, when events ramp up again.
Yeah.
If there's a request for it, I will, but I've got, I think, 20 more interviews to get through. Because I did the interviews and then I never really did the editing.
Right.
So those are up at tellussomething.org or wherever you get your podcasts. The next versions of the podcast are going to come out. We're going to be recorded live in front of a live audience on March 30th at the WOMA.
All right. Well, everyone...
It's one of the reasons I do Tell Us Something, is because I really believe that we can change our hearts, change our communities, change the place we live by sharing stories and listening to one another's stories. And that's really been the genesis of why I run Tell Us Something. Another podcast interview with Justin Engel on the New Engel podcast was with Heidi Wallace, the executive director at Empower Montana. And she said, and I'm paraphrasing, storytelling is a foundation for building ideas, and hearing each other's stories helps us as listeners to better understand our own unique experiences. And that really landed for me. I mean, she was very eloquent in the way that she said it, and I immediately ran to my notebook and tried to write down exactly the way she said it. And I know I could have gone back and listened to it, on the podcast. But I like to try and get it done in the moment.
Yeah, in that excitement.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, perfect. So, well, thank you for providing that platform for people in our community.
Stone Soup, March 30th at the WOMA. Tickets available at largechampevents.com or at the Top Hat box office.
Perfect. Thanks so much for being here, Marc.
Thanks, Lauren.
You've been listening to Front Row Center. For Montana Public Radio, I'm Lauren Korn.